So I'm going to start off today giving a very short synopsis of what a forward test is. So we've had a couple of customers ask what a forward test is, and I guess this how would you set up Raven to do some forward testing. So just want to preface this with saying that I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, because once again, we're not really trading coaches, so we're not here to tell you how you should be trading or how you should be testing. That's really up to you as the user, and it's kind of really up to you to do your own research so that you can determine what you're comfortable with. We don't really, to me, that's kind of getting into the gray area of trading advice. So I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. I don't want to make any suggestions, but I will at least kind of give a simple explanation of what forward testing is, and how to set that up in Raven. So to do that, I'm going to use last week's question that I had built, and we can see that there are signals on the chart right here, and so I think this ought to work out pretty good. And it looks like I better jump into this quickly, because I think we're going to get another buy signal here soon. Alright, so first thing I need to do, well, in order to, I guess the first thing we need to do in order to get your strategies window here, in order to be able to get into the strategies, you do have to be connected to some kind of data feed, right? So you have, in the control center, you do have to have a data feed connecting. It doesn't have to be a live data feed. It could be, you could use the simulated data feed, or you could use the market replay connection, right, if you don't have a live data connection. But you do have to have some data feed connected down here. So once you have a data feed connected, then the strategies windows will be black like this. It'll be selectable. So let's go into the strategy, and so in the strategies where we're going to find Raven. So the strategies are what are capable of actually executing trades automatically, right? So indicators cannot execute a trade. Only strategies can execute a trade. So we're going to add Raven down here. I just double clicked on it. So we have Raven down here, and this is much like the indicator window, right? Yeah. So you add your strategy down here, and then you have all your settings for your strategy over here on the right hand side. So with Raven, we're just going to start at the top and just work our way down. So I'm going to import this BloodHound system that I built last week, and that's what we're going to use for these entry signals here. So first thing I need to do is click on the little button here, and that opens up BloodHound, right? So we can see this is the BloodHound interface, and we're just going to use the BloodHound interface just to load the BloodHound template into it. Alright, so there we go. We can see the solvers have showed up. Something that's always good to do is take a look at your logic templates here, and just make sure that all the leaders are connected up, right? Because as you're kind of testing and checking things and building things in BloodHound, you might accidentally leave these leaders connected wrong, or something like that. So it's always a good idea, just to make sure that all your leaders look like they're connected up correctly, right? Check that one, and that one looks good. So, and what I'm going to do is, let's see, we're going to forward test just using the entry one. So I think this logic template actually has more signals to it, and so that's kind of the goal, is just to find something that has a lot of signals to show you what a forward test is. Alright, so I'm going to click OK on that. So I'm going to set my entry logic to entries, and for anybody who may have missed it, let's see, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago I did a full workshop on Raven, just Raven itself and what all the settings do. So if you'd like to see a full video on all the details of Raven, I believe that's already been uploaded to YouTube, and I can show you that after I'm done here showing you this quick forward test demonstration. Okay, let's see. And exit signals, we did build an exit logic in last week's session. So I'll select the exits here, and let's see. I'm not going to use limit orders. I'm just going to use a market order. Let's see. Enter only when flat. So leaving that false allows Raven to reverse trades. So for example, you can see this short output right here, the short signal. So if Raven was short, it would reverse to a long when it got this, if it didn't get stopped out first. So okay, so here's one thing that's important, that is I guess an important setting when trying to forward test, right? So when you're forward testing, you don't want historical results in your data, right? So you do want to turn the backtest mode off when you want to forward test, right? So if you leave backtest mode on, if you leave that on, then you're going to have a mix of backtest results and forward test results. So let's just turn this off. And showing the chart trader, that's just a personal choice. And auto trades override manual. It's not going to matter because you're not going to be doing any manual trades with Raven, so this isn't going to matter. And I guess next, basically, just kind of put you know, whatever kind of profit and stop that you want to test with. So I'll just do something like that. That's about a 2 to 1, and I'll leave the trailing stops off. And the last thing to do is just to turn it on. Right? You have to turn your strategy on. So that's kind of a key difference between indicators and strategies. You know, indicators you don't have to turn them on, but strategies you always have to enable them to turn them on. And basically we're ready to go. So you just click OK, and we're now doing forward testing. Basically you just let this run for however many days or weeks you want it to run to capture live data. So forward testing means that basically we're going to get test results on live market data. So if you're going to forward test, that means that you shouldn't shut down NinjaTrader, right? You need to leave NinjaTrader running on live data for however many days that you want to forward test it for. Right? If you do have to shut Ninja down, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to basically go into your strategy performance, and you do want to look at real time only. We're going to look at real time, and you're just going to have to save this data for every day that you want to get forward testing results for. Right? So that's only if you have to shut down NinjaTrader at night. So if you can leave NinjaTrader running 24/7, then just let it run, and then when you think you've got enough forward tested data, then you can go into your strategy performance, and it'll show you what it is for however many days are on there. So actually this is going to be, yeah, this start date and end date we can see is actually incorrect. That's showing me the days on my chart. But for forward testing, it's just going to be, yeah, you'll just have to ignore the dates here, and just keep track yourself, when you started the forward testing and when you're ending it. So what I like to do is I like to put these horizontal lines on here. Usually I make them pretty darn thick like this. So whenever I'm doing, whenever I'm testing BloodHound and Raven and I need to test it on live data only, then what I'll do is I'll just put a vertical bar like this, and then that tells me what bar I started, the live data testing on. That's something I like to do. So, all right. I guess just a quick note. You'll notice that there's bloodhounds on the top and ravens on the bottom here. So, if you're going to forward test, you don't really need bloodhound. We could just take that off. All you need is just raven like this, and just let this chart just run on live data. That's all there is to it. Pretty simple, straightforward. Looking at the forward test, I forgot we had this forward test going here. So just to take another look at this, we can see that the entry prices on this forward testing is definitely different than entering at the opening price of the bar, and that's due to the the spread between the bid and ask when you're actually trading live. So, and oil is probably a good example of that, because it's pretty easy to get a 2 or even a 3 tick spread in oil. It just depends on how volatile the market is. But if we're forward testing, what we can do is just pull up the real-time results, and there we go. And basically we know now that these are results from forward testing. All right. So the key is, when you're pulling up your performance report, make sure that you select real-time only, and that will give you live forward tested results there. Alright, so Gary's asking, while forward testing, can I do real trades while doing forward testing? Yes, you can. When you're running a strategy in NinjaTrader, your strategy runs in its own separate memory space. So if I wanted to, I could load up 3 ravens on the same chart and have them all trading different bloodhound systems, or I could have them all trading the same bloodhound system, and when I pull up the strategy performance report, NinjaTrader will keep them all separated. Keeps them all separated. So let's see. Let's put 3 ravens on here. And I do need to, let me enable them. So I think to demonstrate this, I don't think I need to actually put a BloodHound template in there. I know Raven's going to squawk at me when I do this, but I'm really just trying to see what NinjaTrader is going to do. Yeah, so there you go. See, when I pull up the strategy performance, each of the ravens are the data for each of the ravens is tracked separately by NinjaTrader there, right? So you can see 3 instances of raven. So NinjaTrader keeps every strategy kind of like in its own little memory bubble, separated from all the rest. So, yeah. All right, let me let's take those off. So Frank's asking a good question. If you're running multiple ravens, how can you tell which trade management panel belongs to which raven? You can't. I don't know, Frank. Yeah, no, that's kind of NinjaTrader really never counted on. Yeah, so what Frank is talking about is when I had Raven on here a couple of times. let's see. So I had Raven on here a couple times, and I guess Ninja never really considered that you'd be running the same strategy twice on a chart. So there's no way that I know of. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Ninja support can tell you which one's going to be on top and which one's on the bottom. My guess would be that the first one that you added to the chart is on top and the second one is on the bottom. So probably, if we go into our strategy window, I would hope that the Raven on top, would also be the performance report on top as well. So yeah, another possibility, let's see, we can go into the strategy tab here in the control center, right? We can see I have 3 Ravens running. Let's see, if you stretch out the parameters, maybe that'll give you a clue. Oops. If I stretch out the parameters, there's a lot of information. So if you can manage to read the parameters, that might tell you which is which as well. So, okay, yeah. So Frank is asking, I assume you can forward test using market replay. So yeah, that would be correct, Frank. That is the purpose of NinjaTrader's market replay data connection. So let's see, let me bring that up. So in the control center, one of your connection options is the market replay connection. Yep, and that is kind of that is one of NinjaTrader's advantages, is that NinjaTrader has this market replay connection, and the live bid and ask data is stored in that market replay data. So that is a big advantage of using market replay. So just a little side note, if you have a very complex strategy that you're forward testing or back testing with the market replay data, don't play it forward too fast, right? Because if your computer's processor is not capable of performing all the calculations for your strategy, then what happens is NinjaTrader just cuts off the calculations and just moves on to the next piece of data when you're playing the market replay too fast. So just be mindful of that. All right. So if you have a very complex system in BloodHound and you're using indicators that are fairly complex, then if you play the market replay too fast, then your processor may not have enough time to perform all the calculations inside of BloodHound, to perform the indicator calculations and the BloodHound calculations, and so therefore you may get skewed results if you play it too fast. So let's see, Frank is asking, assuming that assuming that Frank can do this, would the results from a forward test and a back test over the same time period be reasonably the same? That all depends on the instrument, Frank. It depends on the typical spread of your instrument. So on something like the ES, where there's almost never a spread, I would say yes, your results should be similar. But it also depends on the volatility, of what you're testing in. There's a lot of factors. It sounds like they should be the same, but you really never know. There is no answer to that, Frank. So there's just a lot of variables that can influence whether back testing or forward testing are going to be close to each other. So You know, backtesting is good for getting you in the ballpark, and then when you think you have something, you definitely want to forward test it. You know, that's kind of the standard the standard used by system builders, right? Yeah, another good note for anybody who has a Big Mike's account, Big Mike trading account. Big Mike has had a couple of automated system builders do webinars on their site, and these guys, you know, explain the testing process that they go through. So those might be some good videos for you guys to take a look at. Okay, so Gary's asking, the manual trades that are not part of the Raven strategy being tested won't corrupt the Raven strategy performance results. Let's see, correct. Yeah, yes, Gary. So when you say manual trades, I believe you mean like if you're doing your own manual trades, using the Super DOM, you know. So if you're doing your own kind of sim trading using the Super DOM, you know, or if you're using another chart and you've got you know, and you're using the chart trader on another chart, whatever, you know, yeah, these two, you know, these two ways of doing your own kind of manual trading won't influence a strategy. All right, so Andrew would like to see a backtest using the SiBacktestRenko bars, using wave mode off. Yes, so with the SiBacktestRenko bars, in order to do proper backtesting, you just have to turn wave mode off. Alright, so I'm going to take this chart and let's see, I don't need BloodHound on here, and let's see, to get this set up, let's see, I'm going to load up a chart template, and once again, I guess I'll take last week's BloodHound template that we built, and yeah, because it has a bunch of trade signals again, so we'll backtest this using the backtestRenko bar. So we'll switch it over to the backtestRenko bar. Let's see, I'll use a smaller size here. One thing to note, okay, so the important setting here for backtesting is wave mode. So I'm going to turn wave mode on, and just put some general settings in here. Okay, hit apply. Alright, so we can see that with wave mode on, we get these nice uniform looking Renko bars, right? So that's your standard kind of hybrid Renko bar look there. Now, if I turn wave mode off, you're going to see they're going to look different. However, the behavior is still going to be the same. So let me hit apply. And you notice the bars don't look uniform anymore, right? The size of the body is no longer uniform, and that's what makes it back testable, is because now the open price is reflects really where the price of the bar did actually open, right? So that's why Renko bars are not back testable, because on a standard Renko bar the open price has been modified, so it really skews your backtest results. Whereas the backtestRenko, when you turn this wave mode off, you can see that the open price of the bar is actually where the bar did actually open. So if we look at some of these, actually here, let me close that. So So look at this bar here. Right, so from that bar, so from these bars we can see that the open price actually gapped up. Whereas on this bar we can see the open was up here. I'm sorry, the close of the bar was up here, but the next bar actually opened below the close. Right, whereas over here we can see right there's the close of the bar, but the next bar actually opened up a tick higher, and this bar here actually opened a tick or 2 ticks lower actually, right? So it is actually kind of, so this with wave mode off, it is reflecting where the price actually moved to when the next bar was actually opened up. So that gives you more accurate backtest results. So, and all right, so if we're going to do some backtesting on this, let me shrink this up. All I need to do is just put Raven on here. We'll load this up. Load up the BloodHound file. And once again, I'm just going to check to make sure all the leaders look like they're connected correctly. I'm sure they are, but should always make sure. Alright, so I'm going to leave it on entries, and I'll set my entry logic there. Set my exit logic to the exit since I actually have an exit logic, and I'll just put in some kind of simple stop and loss, and we'll turn it on. Right, when you see the buttons flashing like this, that tells you that the backtesting is actually being performed. And so let's take a look at the backtest results. And so there we go. So it lost $1,000 over 5 days. Right. So now that is with the bar's backtest mode turned on, right, and it lost $1,000. So let's change these bars. So let's turn wave mode on. So it has that nice, pretty Renko bar look. And let's take a look at the performance result now. And typically, you'll get much better results. And oh, look, now it made $11,000. So, so as you can see, Renko bars definitely skew the backtest results a lot. So, okay, so Andrew, I hope that addresses your question there. Let's see, Frank is asking on the BT Renko, on the backtest Renko, I understand the difference in the opening price, but why is the set bar height not maintained? Let's see. Yeah, so Frank, if I understand your question right, Frank's asking, why is this bar height not maintained? And so in backtest mode, so let's change this, to the backtest mode. We'll turn wave mode off, so it's backtestable. So, the bar height is not maintained because that is what skews the opening price of the bar, right? Is setting these bars to the same height is what actually skews the backtest results. So you can't do that. So what's really critical of candlesticks is the closing price. The closing price is really what is critical for indicators. So so what we're testing is, so we're testing, this BloodHound logic. Actually, we're testing this ANA ADX indicator, and what is really important to the indicator is the closing price. Most indicators only analyze the closing price, Typically it's very rare that an indicator actually uses the open price of the bar, but for back testing, the open price of the bar is really what's critical. As I just showed you with the strategy performance report, having the correct opening price really makes a difference in your back testing results. So with Renko bars, what's really important is how many ticks does each bar close at. So that's really kind of the purpose of a Renko bar, is to take the closing price and increment it in equally spaced distances. So the body length is really not what's so critical about a Renko bar, right? So that's why you have to that's why you have different varying lengths with the backtest Renko bar. So a SIF would like to see, let's see, so when there is a bar with a tail and the next bar also with a tail in the opposite direction, then if the next bar is in the same direction regardless of the tail, regardless if there is a tail or no tail, then you'd like to see a signal. So okay, so a SIF, it kind of sounds like you're probably using a Renko bar, I imagine. All right, let me turn Raven off here. Okay. One good thing to, when you're turning Raven off, I should say, I'm sorry, when you're turning Raven off, what I like to do is I like to, turn the disable it, right? Turn the auto enable off, and then just to hit the close button, just to make sure that this instance of Raven doesn't have a trade going. That way you don't leave. What that kind of does is make sure that you don't have open sim trades in your left in NinjaTrader's database there. All right, and then once I've done that, I can just click on Raven here and just hit the delete button, and it's gone. And that's right. I've got 2 running here. All right. So let me find somewhere on the chart here that we can use. Okay, here's a spot. All right. So we have a tail right there, and we have a tail right there, and at the same time, right, we've got 2 bars in the same direction, like so. So that looks like that meets the requirements there, and it also looks like this meets the requirements as well. So pretty much looks like whenever we get kind of any reversal here, at least let's see, let's change this to wave mode on. Okay, yeah, so that makes a difference. Yeah, so that still qualifies, and here we go. We have a tail there, and we have a tail there, a wick. So, all right, so I think that qualifies. Alright, so we can start working in BloodHound here. And I'm going to start a new template. So clear all that data out. Alright, and I need to give this a name. Alright, the 24th already. Okay, so let's see. The first thing we want to do, or the critical part of this condition, is finding these tails here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a comparison, right? We're going to compare the, let's see, in this case, it would be the open price to the high and the open price to the low. Yeah, so we'll set up a couple of comparison solvers for that. Let's see. Oh, good. So I actually I've got two spots here. Okay, so we're going to have to set up several different comparison solvers. So I can see, right, so we're going to compare the low to the open, right? So I guess this will probably turn out to be a short signal, I imagine. So we're going to compare, for a short signal we need to compare the low price to the open, and for a long setup we're actually comparing the high price to the open. So we're going to have to set up several comparison solvers to do these different comparisons. And let's see, we also, for here, we need to compare the high price to the open. And over here we need to compare the low price to the open. Right, so we got, yeah, several different kind of comparison solvers here. Okay, so let's start setting this up here. Alright, so we're kind of looking for reversals with Wicks to qualify for that reversal. Alright, so let me grab a couple of new comparison solvers and we'll start setting up all that price data in there. So okay, so let me work on the first bar here. So I'm going to work on this guy here. So we're comparing we want to make sure that the low price is actually less than the open, and that tells us when we have a wick here. And the important thing to note is that we want a short output when this condition happens. We want a short output because eventually, right, the bars reverse and go down, and so I think ultimately we're probably looking for, right, a short signal, right? We're looking for a short signal right there. So when the low price is less than the open, we want to generate a short output for this short trade signal. So let me set indicator A to, let's see, for short output, I want to use the low price. And let's see, for now, here's a little tip. For now, I'm going to turn the longs off. So that way I'm not distracted by those long outputs. So I'm just going to look at just the short outputs only for now. And then I'll go back and I'll set it up for a long output here, right? So when we get to this setup over here, I can start working with the price type for the long output. But for now, I'll just focus on setting up this type of situation here, this condition. And so indicator B, let's see, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking through. There's several ways I could do this, so there's like no one correct way. Okay, yeah, so I'm just going to do it this way. Alright, so for indicator B, for actually both of these, both the long and the short, here, I'm going to set it to the open price. Alright, and let's take a look here. So whenever the bars are going up, right, whenever the bars are going up, we can see that only the bars that have tails on them or have wicks on them are actually marked with a short signal. And of course, when there's down bars are always marked like that because the open of the bar is up top here, right? The open of the bar is up here, and of course the low of the bar is always down there. So down bars are always going to be marked here. So let's see. Let's see. I think, yeah, so what I can do is I can add a excuse me, a bar direction to filter this out. And so what I'm trying to do is, you know, I don't want this short output when we're having down bars here. So I want to kind of eliminate that short output there. So let's see, I can use the bar direction, and I need to reverse the bar direction here. All right, I actually need to reverse it. So, because we can see the up bars. So the up bars, we actually want to generate a short output on these up bars that have wicks on them. So once again, as we look at this bar here, right, I do want this short output, but I don't want the short outputs here. And if we look at the bar direction, right, we can see it's obviously the output of the bar direction is kind of opposite here of what we want. So what I want to do, I'm going to use a long short modifier. And we can see that reversed the output here, because the default mode is swap. So it swapped or reversed our outputs here. Alright, so, and I'm just going to rename this to give it a shorter name here. Since it's doing a swap function, I just renamed it to swap, and it kind of made my solver smaller there. So it takes up less room on the board. Put that back. Now let's use an AND node and join these two guys together. And yeah, there we go. Okay, so here's one of our conditions met. Right, so whenever we get an up bar with a wick, we're getting a short output. And so let's see, for this setup over here, let's work on this one here. So ultimately, let me disconnect that. There we go. So ultimately, we want a long signal right here. So when we get a wick on a down bar, we actually want a long output when we get a wick on a down bar. So I think, yeah, I think I can finish setting up this solver here to do that for me. So for the long output, if I set this to the high price, and let's remember I had my evaluate set to short only. So let's put it on long only now. And yeah, there we go. So whenever we have a down bar with a wick on top, we're getting a long output. And of course, whenever we get up bars, right, this is the reversal issue that we had when we were building, this condition over here. So now whenever we get an up bar, we always get a long output. And I think this bar direction should filter that out. Let's take a look. And yes, it did. So there we go. So now we only have a long output on a down bar with a wick on top. And let's see. Yeah, so look, we're missing our short outputs here for these up bars with tails. So what I need to do is now I can set my evaluate to both. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's the condition. So it took this kind of logic to build the condition for the first bar, right? So now we have to take a look at the second bar, which is going to be a reversal, right? That's going to be a reversal bar. So to make sure that we get a reversal bar, in other words, a reversal in price, we're going to use the inflection solver to check for that. And the inflection solver, we're just going to look for a inflection in the close price. So an inflection is a change in direction, right? So whenever we get a change in direction of the closing price is the same as price reversing for us. So let's set this to price, and it defaults to the closing price. So now we can see whenever price reverses for us, right, we're actually getting a signal in the correct direction, so that's good. So when we look here, when we look at this over here, we're getting a short output, which is good for the short signal that we're eventually going to get. All right, and now the let's see. Yeah, the last requirement is we need to get 2 bars in the same direction after the reversal. So after the reversal, we want 2 bars in the same direction there. So to do that, we can just simply use the bar direction, like so. And we can look for 2 bars. So the number of bars that we want are 2 bars in the same direction, like so. Right? And you can see how it kind of has this analog type of output. So I'm going to give that a cleaner look and set the mode to all or nothing. And so now we can look here on the second bar, we get a short output. So after we get 2 bars in the same direction, right, either we get a long output or we get a short output. So now the next step is to connect all of these together. So, alright, so let's keep in mind that our trade signal is actually going to be here after we get the second bar in the same direction, right? The second down bar. So let's take a look at condition 1 over here. So alright, so that's this AND node is basically condition 1, where it's looking for a tail on a bar prior to the reversal. So the output on this bar, I need to get this output all the way over here onto this bar. So in other words, I need to shift the output over 2 bars like that. So what I can do is I can use this look back. I can use the look back. And the look back has a displacement. So in this case, I'm actually going to use the displacement because the conditions are very rigid. It's only the conditions are such that each of these, the wick on this bar and the wick on this bar, they all have to be right next to each other, one bar after the other, and then we're looking for a second down bar in a row. So this set of conditions is very rigid, where it has to have bar 1 happen, bar 2 happen, and bar 3 happen, and there's no miscellaneous bars in between, right? So it's just 1, 2, 3. It has to happen exactly like that. So I can use the displacement here and set that to 3, or I'm sorry, actually set it to 2. Sorry. So now we can see that the short output is now on this bar here. Right? So we took the short from this bar and transferred it over to this bar here. Right? So if I take a look at the AND node, I can see the short output is on here, and then using the look back, the short output gets transferred over here. Okay, so I moved that over, and so the close inflection, which this is actually condition number 2, so I'll just put a number 2 in there. Well, so the short on this bar also needs to get shifted over 1 bar. Needs to get shifted over 1. And yeah, I could just let's see. Yeah, I can just simply use the built-in look-back period of this solver, like so. So we can see whenever we get a reversal, we actually get 2 bars that have the short output or a long output, depending on which way price reversed. Right? So we can see that I now have a short output on the signal bar here, and of course the bar direction, which looks for 2 bars in a row, also has a short output on this bar. So now that I have all my outputs shifted forward onto the actual trade signal bar there, now I can connect them all together with an AND node. Let's connect all those guys up like so. And so now let's take a look and make sure everything looks good. Let's see. Yep, so this long signal looks good. We got a wick before the reversal and a wick on the reversal. And yep, no signal here because there was no wick. And same here. No wick prior to the reversal. Yep, this looks good. We got a wick, and we have a wick, and 2 bars in a row. Yep, there we go. Wick and a signal. Wick and a wick and a signal. So far everything looks good. Alright, I think some places that we really need to test is some places where there's a lot of reversals going on here, a lot of choppy action, and make sure that the signals still look good when there's a lot of chop. And let's see, yep, that looks good. Let's see, this area looks good. And yeah, those look good. Alright, here we go. Here's a bunch of choppy action here. Let's see. Yep, we did get a tail here and a small tail. Alright, a bunch of reversals, no signals, and yep. Alright, I think that's it. Alright, so let's see. So a SIF was making a comment on using the inflection solver. Yeah. So a SIF, I hope you caught what I did here. So let me connect the, right, this is my inflection solver. Right, so the key was to use this look back period. So it took the inflection signal, the inflection output, and extended it forward, actually is the correct term. It extended it forward 2 bars, an extra bar. Right, so that was kind of the key to making sure that you had 2 bars in the same direction to get this to work. Set that to 2. Right, so as usual, a SIF. If anybody would like, would like a copy of this template, you must email us. Okay, just email us requesting this template, and we'll send it back to you. So. Let's see, Raul is asking, does the trading system use data only after the bar closes or data during the bar creation? Okay, so Raul, that is a NinjaTrader setting. So let's see, let me close this up here. So Raul, to determine whether your indicator, excuse me, whether BloodHound or Raven or any other indicator or any other strategy, to determine if it's going to use the bar, if it's going to calculate when the bar closes, or if it's going to calculate when a bar is being built, determines this setting here. So if you notice, I'm going to click on BloodHound, and it is, where is it? There we go, calculating on bar close. So when calculating on bar close is true, that means your indicator calculates when the bar closes. If you set this to false, then what that means is your indicator is recalculated anytime price changes when the bar is being built. Right? So that's what that really does there. Okay, so Raul is asking, so he wants to know, how can we choose the calculation to be at the end of the bar close or the open of the next bar? And Raul, you can't. You can't. That's actually, you can't change that operation. So Raul, I think that question is more geared towards, okay, yeah. So it looks like I addressed Raul's question. All right, thank you, Raul. So I guess I'll just kind of throw this out there. Some people think that for some reason, when you're doing back testing like this, actually, oh, interesting. Look at this. So remember, this is the chart that's doing forward testing, and so look at here. Our entry price was actually much higher than the open of the bar, because let's see, yeah, we're on oil, and so oil actually had a pretty good spread at the time that this bar opened. I can see that there was at least a 2-tick spread when this bar opened, and the bar, you know, apparently it seems like the bar opened at the bid, and let's see, since this was a long trade, the entry was actually taken at the ask, and since there was a 1-tick spread, actually, yeah, was it a one-tick spread? No, 2-tick spread, I believe. We actually got a fill much higher than the open price of the bar. But let's see, I'm just trying to. Okay. Yeah, these are all live trades, so I can't actually give you a real example, so I'll just have to kind of talk hypothetically. But people think that, you know, when people look at their backtest results, you know, they're commonly I get the question, you know, how do I not wait for the next bar to open? You know, so when you see this short signal here, a lot of people think that somehow you can actually get in on the bar that actually has the signal. You know, that somehow you can magically enter the trade, you know, where this bar closed. So somehow people think that, you know, they want to be able to open or get in the trade right there where that bar closed, or on the same bar of the signal. But realistically, what happens is you get the signal after the bar closes, and then the next bar starts. So you really, to get a trade entry on this bar, would be actually going backwards in time. And so there is kind of this desire for people wanting to get in the trade, you know, on that bar, but that's not possible. So when you're backtesting, you're always going to get in. Your backtest results are always going to get you in on the next bar, and if it's backtesting, it's always going to be the open of the next bar. It's never going to be the close of the bar signal. So just want to throw that out there for anybody. Alright, so Chris has got a question here about setting a limit order for an entry. So let's see, Chris is asking, if doing a breakout trade, how can you set the entry order how can you set the entry order, for example, at X ticks above or below the swing point, the swing point price, when using time-based charts? So I guess, well, the type of chart doesn't really matter. A swing point's a swing point, but yeah. So Chris, that what the capability that Raven has is, let's see, well, that's right. We're doing forward testing on this, so I don't want to mess that up. So let me put Raven on this chart over here. All right. So, you know, Raven is just a very basic tool to test your ideas with. This, you know, see if you're in the ballpark. So the limit order capabilities of Raven is it's an offset from the closing price of the bar. So this limit offset from entry, the entry is the closing price of the previous bar. So for example, yeah, let me clean this chart up here. There we go. Alright, so if you're using a limit order with Raven, that offset is going to be based off of the closing price of this bar, the bar that had the signal. And so that is Raven's only limit order placement capabilities for now. So we are working on a chart, another strategy, a more advanced standalone strategy. It's kind of like a combination of Raven and a chart trader. You know, you can use it for discretionary trading, and you can hook your BloodHound system into it. So this next product that Jeremy's working on will have that capability, Chris. So you can actually use an indicator's value to determine your limit order price, right? So that's what we'll be waiting on there, Chris. Right? All right, we'll end the workshop with that. Thanks, guys.